My first book, Bida, told the story of an American boy fighting in World War I. Only when the guns began to bellow, he froze up and was unable to leave the trench. His safety underground, however, was short-lived, as a German boy with similar ideas did the exact same thing. So these two boys, utterly petrified, sat in silence for a moment before their unnatural hatred as enemies kicked in, and after a brief struggle, the American boy emerged victorious, having slashed the German boy's throat. How utterly depressing. In the book's sequel, Eudaimonia 2, the German boy's version of this same story is told, only this time he emerged from their struggle victorious, after shooting the American boy with his sidearm. He left the trenches and returned home to his sweetheart. They started a family, and his life appeared utter bliss, save for the fact that time seemed to be speeding along at a surreal rate, until suddenly, everything began to crumble all around him. The German was desperately fighting off reality, because in the real world, everything that happened was just as it was. The American boy stabbed him in the throat, and the love of his life, their child, their lives, were all the delusions of a dying brain, tricking him into denying the reality that he was dying in that trench. Okay, now that is a whole other level of depressing, and I thought I had composed the utter peak of ridiculously sad storytelling. But because life has a habit of making fools out of fiction, this week an entirely new flavor of gut-wrenching sadness wafted its way into my life. This is the story of Bida Bam. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's just a cat. Those animals that we encourage everyone to spay or neuter because they reproduce like mad. You can find them everywhere and they die every day. And I hear you, but just stay with me for a minute or two. Bida Bam was a cat my girlfriend and I adopted back in 2010. He was named after the metal band Between the Buried and Me. By the way, if any fans of Between the Buried and Me were confused by this video, that's my bad. That's just his name. I also probably shouldn't have used an image of the band as the thumbnail, and I definitely shouldn't have put Between the Buried and Me killed on stage by minions in Fortnite. 1 thumbs up equals 1 sad in the description. So that's my bad, guys. I'll try and do better. Anyway, we got Bida Bam to be a companion for our other cat, Jimmy. They did not get along, as they were polar opposites to one another. This is Jimmy. That's the photo that the vet took during his one and only visit because they asked us not to bring him there ever again, since he was attacking everyone and shitting everywhere. Jimmy, ironically, was metal. Bida Bam was a big old baby. My girlfriend and I got married and moved across the country, cats in tow. They saw this great country of ours from one end to the other, and last year they saw it again when we moved back across the country. During both trips, Bida Bam the baby would meow and whine, while Jimmy just chilled and enjoyed the scenery. Then they would sleep on each other. What a life. But cats don't live forever, and 6 months ago, sadly, Jimmy died. And when I say died, I mean he just got up, went into the next room, laid down, and died on the floor. No drama, no fanfare, just, I'ma head out. Dead. And Bida Bam the baby was suddenly alone. If you want to know what having your heart ripped out is like, imagine a cat you've loved since he was a kitten wandering around your house, periodically meowing like he's looking for his brother and can't seem to find him. But then, a few months later, the final chapter of Bida Bam's life would begin to unfold. We noticed that when he would yawn, he wouldn't really open his mouth. Then, over time, eating seemed to become more challenging. We took him to the vet since he was never banned from them, and they said that he probably had advanced gum disease and they could operate to remove the plaque buildup preventing him from opening his mouth. Since he's older, there's a chance he'd die, but his overall health made him a good candidate for it. We were scared for him, but agreed. The day came and Bida Bam the baby went in for his surgery. An hour later, we received the call, and the news was somehow worse than if he had died under anesthesia. Once they got him under, they realized that it wasn't that he couldn't open his mouth, but that his mouth couldn't open. He had a rare condition that caused progressive bone growths in his skull, which made mouth opening a physical impossibility. We were on borrowed time with Bida Bam the baby. I'm just going to skip to the end of the story. This past week we had Bida Bam put down. A woman came to our house and she was like an actual angel. She was kind and sweet and caring and understanding, and everything she did was as perfect as anyone, man or feline, could ask for. It was like Bida Bam the baby made a new friend, who then immediately murdered him. But the point of this story, the heart-wrenching, soul-crushing pain, is what came in the weeks leading up to Bida Bam the baby's death. I had mentioned before that due to his mouth and jaw, eating was becoming challenging. We switched to wet food, but that too soon became challenging. So we switched to pate, which was also challenging. So we switched to mousse, which was also challenging. Our kitchen was a disgusting mess because eating meant him mashing his face into the food and getting it everywhere as he tried to force some of it into his mouth. I know that there are many real pains in this world that are considerably worse than losing a cat, but goddamn. Imagine the heartache of a creature that you've been caring for 13 years, most of its life, coming to you for food and wanting to know why you aren't giving it something it can eat. A cat that is, in every other way, completely healthy and loving and playful and desperately hungry, but is physically unable to eat and is looking to you for answers. Why aren't you feeding me? Why won't you give me something I can eat? For the last few weeks, I lived in genuine fear in my own home that he would come in and ask me for something I couldn't possibly deliver, to free him from the pains of hunger. On Monday, Bida Bam casually walked into the room with his face covered in blood. He tried so hard to eat that Bida Bam isn't in pain anymore. Last night I dreamt I was bathing him in the kitchen sink, and when I woke up and remembered he was gone, I couldn't go back to the possibilities of the dream world. I know he was just a cat, but I contend that to have any creature that you have had since it was a baby for 13 years, seen 19 states with, that treats you as the purveyor of life, look to you like you are the dispenser of cruelty for not being able to bestow the impossible, is a torment that I am glad to be rid of. My girlfriend, now my wife, are in anguish for the lost member of our family. But knowing that he isn't in pain and having been freed of that burden, well, losing Bida Bam was bittersweet.